Good evening and welcome to the City of Helena City Commission Administrative Meeting, October 12, October 13, 2021, 4 p.m. This meeting is called to order. Amanda, would you please take the roll?
Certainly, Mayor. City Attorney Joden. City Manager Harlow Schock. Here. Commissioner Halliday.
Commissioner Halliday is running a little late. He will be here shortly.
Commissioner Dean.
Here.
Commissioner Logan.
Here.
Commissioner O'Loughlin.
Here.
Mayor Collins.
Here. Thank you. Oh, do you want to put back the screen, please? Thank you. Welcome and thank you for participating in the City of Helena City Commission Administrative Meeting. We are pleased to be able to provide this alternative meeting format in the city's effort to broaden public participation. Please be patient as we may experience technical difficulties during the meeting. We welcome your public commentary and ask you read the following tips and guidelines for the app usage and your participation. Thank you. Commission comments? Any comments from the commission? Discussion? Okay. Recommendations from Helena Citizens Council. Representative Nancy Perry. Amanda, would you upgrade Ms. Perry, please?
Yes, sorry about that, Mayor. She should be able to speak now.
You have the floor, Ms. Perry.
Thank you. I was having a little trouble getting unmuted. Hello, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. This is Nancy Perry from HCC District 2. And the Helena Citizens Council next meeting is on October 27th. Our main topic is going to be winter snow removal, although we all agreed that it is not going to snow this winter. We invited David Knopke to talk to us about snow removal, and we're looking forward to hearing what he has to tell us. If we have any time to ask questions, we will also be asking Mr. Knopke about a recommendation that we submitted to the Commission on February 24th of this year about improving signage for capital transit. And we're interested in learning if any progress has been made on that recommendation. We recall a commission meeting where Mr. Knopke reported what he had learned about the expense that the city would incur if it acts on our recommendation, but we're unaware of any final decisions about the issue. We noticed on today's agenda that one of the recommended capital reappropriations is $86,000 for capital transit. And we're going to be asking Mr. Knopke if any of that is going to go towards improved signage. And that's all I've got, unless there are questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bear. Any comments or questions for Ms. Bear?
Mr. Mayor, I did have one question.
Please, go ahead.
Ms. Perry, I know in previous meetings you all have discussed a meeting you had, I don't think it was the last one, maybe 2 meetings ago, where you discussed housing and helping support those who are lacking housing in the community. And there was a discussion as to whether you all would consider thinking about how to solve some of these issues. And I'm curious if you've had that discussion yet or plan to in terms of bringing forward a recommendation or ideas on how to help solve some of these issues.
Yeah, that's on our list. We haven't had that meeting yet, though.
Okay, great.
Sorry, but we'll come up with something, I'm sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other comments? Questions for Ms. Perry? Okay, city manager's report.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Just a quick item for you all. The opioid settlement. Each state has received word from a potential settlement with Johnson & Johnson as part of one of many pharmaceutical companies that are a part of a lawsuit brought by each of the states. The team will be reaching out to the Attorney General's office to ask for more information and is currently reviewing what we need to do as an organization to opt in as a political subdivision of the state. The potential for these dollars to provide really response to the impacts of opioids in our community is real, and we're going to continue to move forward in opting in and making sure that Helena has the opportunity, if the settlement is actually reached, as a political subdivision to be part of the determination of distribution. As far as the expectations of those dollars, those still remain to be seen, although it's understood that the Department of Health and Human Services at the federal level would be the implementing agency, and their rules and rulemaking would apply on the distribution. So there's potential administrative burden with those dollars as well, which the team will evaluate on the finance side as well as on the technical expertise side of managing these kinds of programs in Helena. So we'll come back with more details soon. I just want to make sure you're aware that we are going to be looking into how we opt in as a political subdivision in Montana. If you have any questions for me, let me know. And if I can't answer them, we'll research more or answer them tonight. That's my update, Mayor.
Thank you. Comments or questions for Manager Hollishaw? City Attorney's update.
Manager, Commission, nothing to report this evening.
Thank you. Department direction, feedback needed. Capital budget carryover, fiscal 21-22. Manager Hollishaw.
Sure. So, Mayor, I'll turn this over to Director Danielson. This is within the adopted final budgets resolution 20705. It requires that we come back and talk with you about reappropriation of dollars that are carry forward on capital improvement projects and where the recommendations lay for those dollars that we would be implementing. There was a memorandum attached to this item that provides more detail, and I know that Nancy Perry read it from the HCC as well as she identified the capital transit. So thank you, Nancy. I'll turn it over to Sheila.
You have the floor, Director Danielson.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners and City Manager Hollishaw. Tonight we have before you a list of capital reappropriations. Each department and/or division was tasked with looking at their capital appropriations and determine if those appropriations needed to be carried forward into the new fiscal year. And we waited until now so that we could close out our fiscal year, because we do open our books for 60 days for any large expenditures that are completed in the prior year. And so we did that, and the folks evaluated their capital appropriations and came forward and made a list of what they felt needed to be reappropriated into the new fiscal year. I consolidated all of them into one document, and although the number seems quite large, it is just a carryover. So a total reappropriation for the city manager's approval, $23,797,049. In the memorandum, I've split it out amongst division on what people are what the divisions are asking for carryovers. For example, the ITNS security project, that's been an ongoing appropriation project. They're just about ready to wrap that up, and however, they didn't get to complete that in fiscal 21, so the reappropriation is requested for the new fiscal year. Transportation services and public works and parks and rec all had ongoing capital projects that just did not get completed in fiscal year 21, and so they're requesting to reappropriate those dollars in fiscal 22. On the detail list, I did detail out each project and a request, and I'm available for questions, or the department directors are available to answer any questions that you might have for any of these appropriation carryovers.
Thank you, Director Danielson. Were you saying something, or was it just?
No, I'm done. Thank you.
Comments or questions for Director Danielson or Manny?
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you. So how does this carryover compare to previous fiscal years?
This particular process has been a typical process for the City of Helena. I'd have to look at, I can pull the carryovers from the prior year in front of me. I think the grand total that was requested for carryover last year was pretty similar, but let me just check here if you'll give me 1 minute.
Happy to wait.
Last year it was around 22 or 31 million.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the commission to Director Danielson?
Yeah, Mayor, I have a couple questions.
Please, go ahead.
So I apologize if I just missed this. I'm single parenting and there was a big crash upstairs. So you might have already said this when I stepped away, but do we have to act on this at a formal meeting, or is this just sort of like information within the purview of the city manager's authority?
Consensus.
Thank you for that question, Commissioner Laughlin. The City Commission does not have to act on this. They can certainly provide direction to the city manager, but the budget resolution indicates that the city manager has the authority to approve or deny the appropriations after consenting with the commission on her recommendation.
Okay, great. And then one other question, Mayor. So I know that all of these have been approved by the commission in FY21 or perhaps a fiscal year prior to that. The one that sort of stood out to me, but I would just be interested if there's other commissioners that have thoughts on this, is the warm storage building, which we have had conversations about this, and I think all sort of collectively have been a little unclear about at what point perhaps the commission may want to weigh in on, is this still the direction that the commission and the city wants to take? So I guess that's just maybe a question to you all. This has been carried over for, I think, a couple fiscal years now. The last action that the city commission took was to table the bid for this project, largely because the bid came in much higher than budgeted. But I think there's been some discussion as a commission from a policy perspective of whether or not we want to move forward with this project. So I guess that's just a question to city manager. Is the intent to move forward with the bid again for this project in FY22, or might there be another sort of decision point or discussion on this as a commission?
Thanks, Commissioner. Yeah, the last, sorry, Mayor.
Go ahead.
The last conversation at the budget adoption, Commissioner Dean noted her concern about the project. In further conversations, I understand the location in particular is of great concern, and the potential of what was being designed and put out to proposal is not the same conversation. Now, I don't have ORC Director Leland on today, and I will definitely provide to you from him an update on that project. I do understand that it is adopted, and that I have asked him and Director Konopke to reach to Director Konopke about potential additional locations for those vehicles to be stored. I understand the vehicles that they're talking about, the storage on, are those that are related to waste collection, not utilities or streets. So the potential for having the cold start and much of the wear and tear on these larger vehicles, trash trucks, larger vehicles are really expensive, $250,000 type acquisitions. So the wear and tear on engines during cold is part of the reason they're bringing this up. But the second is also an expansion. Hold, sorry about that. Hold, please. The music was clearly still on my speakers. Apologies for that. So the site location is still being evaluated by the team. I'll ask Director Leland to provide an update for you all. But at this point, there's nothing out for RFP right now.
Okay. Yeah, I just wonder if that, if the commission is interested in saying, let's pause on that. Let's not authorize sort of the carryover for that, and then give the city staff the opportunity to sort of circle back with this commission, or potentially that's in FY22. I mean, I don't know if this project is, if you all are looking at doing it this fall, just to give an opportunity for further conversation. It's always sort of seemed like, so a previous commission, I think even maybe before my time, approved authorization of this project, and we really haven't figured out when is the right time to have that conversation. So this feels like maybe a decision point where we can say, let's pause on that one, and you all could bring it back to the commission in the FY23 budget, or an amendment to the 22 budget, should you want to.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, on that point, I appreciate Commissioner Laughlin bringing this up. I think that having the opportunity to actually, I mean, since I've been on the commission, we've never actually had an opportunity to even discuss this large of a project. I know how much time we spent on, for example, the Law and Justice Center, which was not as large of a expenditure as this will be, and understand that it was approved many fiscal years ago. I think having a better idea of what it actually looks like is important. And then I think the other piece too, given the master plans and the feasibility, I'm blanking on what we actually were calling the second plan in the budget this year for solid waste. But I mean, we have multiple planning processes happening right now, and this would have a direct impact on those. And so I do think that, it is important that before, and I mean, I know we don't have a bid in front of us yet again, or not right now, or I don't even know if in the immediate future, but I do think having an opportunity to actually fully understand what has been proposed, and then really vet that, because I mean, we have had much projects that are on a much smaller scale in terms of the cost and much greater conversation than we have had for this project. And I did have one question, Mr. Mayor, that was not on this item.
Go ahead.
Okay, I was just curious. I know I saw for the state grants in the wastewater fund, I'm just curious, are there deadlines to spend those funds, specifically the first one. I think it's page 10 of the packet.
Thank you, Commissioner Dean. Are you asking, I'm sorry, are you talking about the wastewater fund?
For the West Side wastewater main.
Oh, I believe that Director Leland is on the line, and I will turn this over to him to respond.
You have to-
Mayor, Commissioner, if you're asking about the West Side project, phase 1 and phase 2, the project is basically 85% done. We are just waiting to install the lift station to be able to go across and not be able to go across the school district that we talked about and brought that change order forward to the commission a few months ago. It's taken a while because of COVID to be able to get all the parts and pieces to be able to install that. So it won't be installed until next spring. But that grant has basically been spent. We have already put into a draw to be able to get that money, and we've had timelines extended. We are in conversation with both TCEP and SRF. We just had one today, and so we aren't in violation of that grant, and we're still following through on that. We will get the full grant. We just have to wait for the full project to be under in there and full understanding and knowledge of what's going on.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the commission about what Commissioner O'Loughlin just stated?
So, Mr. Mayor, I'd be comfortable if there was interest in moving that one item off and leaving it for future discussion of whether or not to rebudget it in a future year by a future commission.
Thank you. Any other? Okay, well, Madam Hollishock, I think we have consensus on delaying that warm storage until we can hear from the from Mr. Leela and Mr. Kanapke on their plans. Do you have any other comments or questions on the budget carryover?
Mr. Mayor, I just have, I guess, a logistics question.
Please.
So for that, and I don't know if Ms. Danielson or Manager Hollishock would answer this, but does that mean that, you know, that money will just remain there? I mean, because obviously it's already been appropriated in previous budgets. And it, you know, are we just not going to include it in the carryover into this new fiscal year, or what happens to that then? Because it seems it just is sitting out there then. Is that an accurate statement?
No, I think you're right. The resolution shares that I'm to inform you all of the plan for the projects as appropriations in the capital reserves. And after advising you of the intention of those reappropriations. Now, whether or not I don't know that you can have a formal action not to fund something in an admin meeting. It feels as though that seems like it'd be a commission meeting. I would say potentially that Thomas is the best person to ask about that. But if the intent is to hold on the project before the team continues to move forward and ask for an update on the project, that I think is clearly the ask. That the clarifier I actually was trying to unmute for is the ask actually not to fund that reappropriation at all and move those dollars out separately and hold them out. I wasn't clear. I understood that I was being asked to provide more detail, but I want to understand if you're asking that I not fund that project this year and instead pull those dollars out.
So I know that there are two questions here. One, whether we're asking to fund or not to fund, and whether we need updates. let's go to Mr. Jordan, Attorney Jordan, to find out whether we can do that here or at a commission meeting.
Mayor, Commission, I would prefer to look into it, research it more, look at the budget resolution, the budget statutes, and get back to you.
You bet, thanks. So the second question was whether we are not going to be funding it at all. I don't think that was the intent, or at least that's how I understood that. I don't think that was the intent, not to fund the project, but we didn't have any information on the project. So I think that's where we were going with it. Unless I'm wrong, please, someone else can chime in.
Well, Mayor, just a quick, this was sort of why I asked my first process question about what we're doing today and if this needs to go to a future commission meeting for a formal decision. What I think we're being asked to do is sort of give direction to the city manager to use her current authority to carry over these projects. I think what's interesting about this is if ultimately the decision by the city attorney is no, we can't give that direction to pause on this project. I guess like once a commission is funded, I truly don't know where the commission has authority to alter a plan if a project hasn't been moved forward and hasn't actually been done. It seems like it just stays in the budget forever. So I don't know. I mean, that's truly, I think this has been a question for the last 2 years of when do we get to have a conversation? And it seems like this has been put forward to us. My recommendation would be that we do give direction today that we do not carry over this project, and that if the city manager would like to bring it forward as an amendment to the FY22 budget or reflected in the FY23 budget, that gives the commission the opportunity to discuss the project again.
And Mr. Mayor, I'll just say, I was just looking at the memo, so that's all I was going off of. And one of the alternatives for consideration that was put on there for us was request the city manager to partially fund reappropriation requests, right? Which would be to pull out any light item that the commission felt should be sort of excised and then have that later discussion. So to me, we haven't had a discussion on this project. I think Commissioner Dean has set it out. If we don't have the authority to excise one project out today, I don't know what authority we have to approve all the projects today. We noticed that it's a meeting, right? It's on the agenda. So I think we just decide whether we want to do that or whether it comes for later discussion. I'm fine with it either way, but I think it makes sense personally to just remove it and justify it, like Commissioner O'Loughlin said, either a budget amendment or in the next fiscal budget.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think we should give Attorney Jordan a chance to do his research, and then we can move forward with whatever his research brings up. That's where I'm at with that. Any other comments from the commissioner?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I'll just say, I think the manager and staff have made a pretty good case for the need for this building. And I'm comfortable with the carryover. So, obviously that's a minority position, but I'll just say that.
Thank you. We're all over the globe on this one, I can see. I don't even know where to go with that because we have people saying we should go ahead and make a decision now. We have Mr. Jordan doing his research. We have another commissioner who was comfortable with it, with the carryover. And so.
If I may, Mayor, can I offer up one of the pending resolutions, and I see Director Danielson has her hand up. One of the pending resolutions is the capital improvement policy. If there was an actual program in place that set up a method of funding over a 5-year, this wouldn't have lagged like it has. So know also that the policy of creating a capital improvement program is pending, and the team is working on that as well. So this would be a good example of an opportunity to share in this particular project the next best step in using that new policy, just as a potential recommendation for for Director Danielson to use it as an example, and how we adopt the projects moving forward and incorporate these that have lagged but still been funded in previous years.
Thank you. Dr. Danielson, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. And Thomas can correct me if I'm wrong. The budget resolution as it reads and was approved by the Commission is listed on page 2 of the memo, where this particular exercise of bringing capital appropriations is under the authority of the city manager, but it has to meet specific criteria for her to consider. And one of the criteria is that she needs to inform the Commission of her intention to either approve or deny the capital reappropriations. It's obviously more transparent if the Commission, has reviewed it and weighed in on it, especially if this is increasing the appropriations for the next fiscal year. And you can certainly provide guidance to her, which is why we brought this forward in an administrative meeting versus a full Commission meeting, because there really is no motion or ask of the Commission other than direction and recommendations to the city manager for her to either approve or deny either the full carryover requests, partial carryover requests, or none of the carryover requests. You can make that recommendation to her, and then she can then take that recommendation and adapt the appropriations as she feels is needed for the next fiscal year. And so that's why we brought this forward in an admin meeting instead of Commission meeting, because there really is the way the resolution is written is that we do not need the Commission's approval. We just need city managers just needs to inform the Commission. And just to put light on the capital improvement program policy that we are working, I'm currently working with Amanda Opitz and Christopher Cooey with City Manager Carlos Schock on a capital improvement policy that would address these, where it would be more of a longer term outlook instead of an annual outlook of appropriating money for capital projects. So City Manager Holoshak pointed out that it would take care of, having that policy adopted by the Commission would take care of these annual appropriations, because we would have more of a longer term outlook on projects and when they get and when the good funds get appropriated. Thank you for some of the clarification, Director Danielson.
Just a comment, Mr. Mayor, and then a question. So just in defense of, I think Mr. Leland wasn't Public Works Director back then, but whomever was, this was on the CCIP. I think if you go back to 2014, 2015, 2016, this building has been on there. It's changed in various iterations over the years, but it was on the CIP for a number of years. And that's probably where it originally got approved in an old budget, was because it was coming up for on the schedules, and Public Works and Solid Waste said, let's get it on there, and the Commission approved it. But a question on whether, so if we don't excise it out today, right, Thomas has got to do his research on that. What is the next step on any of these projects, but use the warm storage as an example? Does that project move forward, right, while we wait for that research to be done? Is there engineering work to be done? Are we going out for bids on it? Just help understand what any given capital project looks like at this point, right? If a Commission doesn't make a policy determination, whether to stop a project or to fund a project at this point.
Just a great question. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Mayor.
No, with that clarification from Director Danielson and Commissioner Halliday, at this time, I'm okay with the carryover. Go ahead, Commissioner, Manager Hollishaw.
I was just going to share the response to the question. The fastest way to view the work we're doing this year is looking at the work plan. So those capital improvement projects that are listed as major projects, and I'll bring those back forward to you all in next week's meeting. I'll provide to you the first iteration of the work plan update to the commission and status. That is the difficulty, is that the CIP has not been connected with a work plan. So the capital improvement program policy that we're discussing outlines the method that would be used for every project, which identifies first feasibility, then entrance into the CIP for full funding after an adoption, and clarifying. So feasibility is the reality of what you ran into with the warm storage bid. Was the dollar amount set aside, which I think happens frequently, a dollar amount is set aside, and it gets us started. It gets a footnote into the budget, but it doesn't actually fund the project, and we have something that is more than can be funded. And that feasibility, so what has happened is that those dollars have been locked down, and when you lock down those dollars, then you don't have them open. So that feasibility study, before they even get into the CIP, is the step that we've been talking through. That is the gap, the greatest gap we have overall.
And I guess what I'm just trying to explore, right, because we've got multiple approaches, right? Just move forward today, leave it in there, but find out more information, excise it out, and make it have to go through the budget process next year. What I'm trying to figure out is we've got $1.2 million appropriated for this. If it stays in today, subject to future scrutiny, more information at some point, what are the actual dollars that are being spent out of that 1.2 in the process, right? Are you going to, I know we had a plan, I know it was put out to bid, were changes made, right? Are there new plans? Have we hired a new engineer? Are we going to expend 50,000, 200,000, 500,000 before we get to a point where then, right, we get to the next budget cycle, the bid, and a commission goes, oh, we want to deny this bid. We don't want this thing anymore. And that's what I'm just trying to figure out, is how do we make sure we're not expending taxpayer money before this thing comes for some kind of gut check. If 3 people have at least indicated some interest in more information on it, what's the best way that we save the taxpayers money in at least before we find out what this thing is, right?
Sure.
The easiest way would be to cancel it and to redo it next time. But if we're going to have more information on it, what does that look like? Because that's going to be something for Commissioners Dean, Logan, and Collins in a couple of months, and whoever their new folks with them are, to find out what that is. Is this thing already going to have spent $300,000 at that point?
When I hear that we've been discussing this since 2014, I think it's time for us to just make a decision on it and move forward with it. Go ahead, Manager Hollishaw.
Thanks, Mayor. Commissioner Halliday, I think anything that is not on the current work plan set to move forward this year is a project that could potentially languish with dollars set aside that were set aside years before. If we were to ignore the need, which is a capital improvement program. So we are working on the capital improvement program policy that would set up the structure and ensure that projects that are in an actual previous year appropriation that has continued to be forwarded, and really holding down $1.2 million for these several years. I agree, is the holding down of these taxpayer dollars. Those are the exact conversations we need to have when we get to that capital improvement program. For now, the ask is, do you want me to move on it? I'm not planning to move on this project until, on any project, until we understand that the dollars set aside are appropriate. That has not been a method that we've employed for a couple of years. And I would like to return to that method and ensuring that when the commission has information in front of them, it's fully understood when they're funding it, not at concept. Concepts are great. I think they were sold a concept, they put money aside, but that next piece of implementation is much more expensive potentially. I would like for Ryan and David to talk about that feasibility and the potential and come back to you all. But again, that's going to be part of the larger project program that we need to establish. And that's what this year's efforts really intended to do. Otherwise, we're repeating that pattern of sitting on money again.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor,
go ahead, Commissioner.
I'm comfortable with moving forward in the manner in which the city manager has described. This may have been, you know, in a CIP in 2014, but I know within the last year and a half, you know, we've not really discussed it at all, except for conceptually, you know, when the budget came up of, can we take this out? It was said that we couldn't because it had already been appropriated, and that's kind of where things were left. So I think having more information and understanding, you know, what are the benefits and what are the costs of, you know, having this large of a project. I think having that discussion is really important, and we haven't done that yet. And I think the city manager is describing a process in which we actually start to do that with not just this project, but other ones. And I'm okay with that when we get that opportunity to evaluate whether this is the plan is appropriate as presented or not.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do we have any other comments from the commission? So we're still at a impasse, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, Mr. Mayor, here's the thing, right? Like, this was approved in a CIP that existed before because the departments would just come and say, these were in our work plans. It was never discussed, right? Like, I just want to make that clear for you to understand. You know, Commissioner Dean is asking the right questions. I think it's the prerogative, honestly, of the three of you to decide what you want to do with it. Because by the time you make a determination on it, I'm not going to be here. Commissioner O'Loughlin's not going to be here. So I think you just move forward with it the way the manager has described. I'll tell you my thoughts on it, that putting aside my judgments on whether it's a good or bad thing, if you don't excise it today and have a legitimate discussion about it in the next budget process, you will build this building, irrespective of whether you like it or not at the time that it comes. If you take it out today, you'll at least have the opportunity to have a robust discussion about it. On balance, it's probably a needed building for this city, but you're going to build it if you leave it in today. But I think that's up to the three of you guys to decide. So I think you should just move forward with it, leave it in the budget, and probably build it, start building it sometime next year.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments? So Manager Hollishock, I think we will entertain some discussion as you want Director Kanopke and Director Leland to put forth. And so you will put it on a future agenda, and let's listen to the discussion.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
I think also if we could have Thomas provide his analysis of what actually can happen would be helpful too. Yes,
definitely. Okay, any other comments? Thank you. Do we have anyone from the public wishes to address this topic?
Mr. Mayor, I have Jewel Wellborn.
Please upgrade Jewel. Jewel, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am pleased to be able to attend our Zoom meeting here with the commissioners and you, Mr. Mayor. I am the woman who's had the call to see if we could retrieve the portions of the UDC monument that was taken down.
Miss Wellborn, this is, this public comment is for the topic we were discussing. You will have time to discuss the,
I apologize.
no, that's fine. That's fine. Perfectly okay. But we will have time for that.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Mr.
Amanda?
Mayor, we
Yeah.
have additional comment. This is from Sonda Gobb.
Go ahead, Ms. Gobb.
Hi, Mayor and Commission.
Hi.
So what I understand is, so we have a building for this and land for this, and it looks like it's somewhat, as a Montanan, it seems kind of a luxury item right at this moment when we have major issues that we need to look at. So I'm not quite sure how that money is going to go through, but I just wanted to let you know about that comment. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Amanda?
Mr. Mayor, at this time, I have no other hands raised and no written comment.
Thank you. Okay, Lincoln Prosperity Proposal Letter of Support. Manager Hollishaw?
Sorry, thanks, Mayor. This item came up in early spring. The Lincoln Prosperity Group had come to the commission and requested under an item brought by IU that the support for this project be drafted up as part of a letter. Now I know that Director Pinozo took that to the overall project to the joint City County Parks Board, who also already sent a letter of support for the project. This item is, there's Director Pinozo. You can ask her further questions around that conversation with the joint City County Board, but we're happy to draft up a letter similar to what was already sent by the Parks and the joint City County Board.
Director Pinozo, do you have any addition?
Mayor, Commissioners, I do not. I have attached to the memo the letter that the City County Parks Board drafted and sent, and we can use that as a template if that is acceptable to you. And if you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you, Commissioners. Any comments or questions about the?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
I would be comfortable submitting a letter of support. When they had reached out before, they were very happy to answer any questions that I had individually. And I think something that's obviously important for our entire area, and would be supportive of the letter.
Thank you. Any others?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I'd be supportive of that as well.
Thank you. Any others? I will also be supportive of a letter of support for the Lincoln Prosperity Program. Any other comments?
Mayor, I'm comfortable with that as well.
Thank you. Well, Director Pinozo, you have your letter of support. Okay, possession and consumption of alcohol on city property and right of way. City Manager Hollishaw.
Hi, thanks, Mayor and Commission. You know, the awesome summer that we had a great Pride event. We had several additional events take place. Lots of conversation around open container came up. And as part of those conversations, I had made a commitment to return to you all with more contemplation by the team. And that's where I'll turn this over to City Attorney Joden, who had with his team and the group who manages our projects that are our community events, that's the Parks and Transportation teams, both of those, as well as the police department, to contemplate what it would be like if we not only just kept it status quo, which is the recommendation, but also what it would be like to have removal of certain parts and pieces. So I'll turn it over to Thomas, help share some info to you.
Attorney Jordan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. Just real briefly to go over existing city code sections 7-14-1 and 51-1 basically prohibit the same thing, although they're worded slightly differently. Prohibit the consumption of alcoholic beverages in public rights of way, streets, alleys, parks, and other places owned by the city. And then also prohibits open containers of alcoholic beverages in the same places. Folks can get permission from the city manager to possess and consume alcoholic beverages in those locations, which has been a requirement of the city since at least prior to the 1970s with old code, as far as we can go back and track. The copies of those current provisions are attached in your packet to my memo, or to our memo. With the permit application, the applicant has to provide proof of liability insurance for $1 million for each claim, $2 million aggregate. The insurance requirement covers claims against the city that the city was responsible for the injury or damage due to a third party because of that permission. And I think you can see the importance of that liability insurance with the recent downhill roller or soapbox derby event. We had the requisite insurance in place for that, both for the event and for the alcohol serve. And if the city were to be named in a claim, we would look to the event organizer's insurance to defend and indemnify the city. So it's my recommendation that is an important part of this permitting process and should be required with every application. We did research more and found out that or confirmed that commercial general liability includes what is called host liability. That means an event organizer can get insurance under their commercial general liability to cover the provision of alcohol if it is not their primary business purpose. That's distinct from liquor liability, which bars and casinos obtain because that is their primary purpose. So, for example, those users of rights of way in parks who want to hold an event and whose primary purpose business is not providing alcohol, they can get host liability generally through their commercial general liability insurance. And then finally, requests for these permits to consume alcohol in public places must be submitted to the city at least 30 days prior to the start of the event, so we can get all of the review in time. And as the manager mentioned, as you can see on the memo, there are several departments that are involved in the review of these applications. As a way of background, the last several years, the commission has considered this subject, most recently in June when it permitted events in the downtown urban renewal district to have open containers of alcohol without a permit, and thus the insurance on July 16th and 17th of the summer. Prior to that, in February of 2018, the commission considered a petition. It was several emails to the mayor and commission to allow possession and consumption of alcoholic beverages in the downtown area generally. The commission after that meeting, which was an admin meeting, gave consensus to the manager to draft an ordinance allowing possession of alcoholic beverages in the downtown area. But then there was further discussion and consideration of that ordinance was temporarily placed on hold by the commission and the manager at the time. Then in May of 2020, near the start of the current pandemic, Chief Hagan gave a brief update on downtown businesses wanting to use the public rights of way to provide alcoholic beverages as a means of supporting them for social distancing. And it was determined at that point that the existing and current permitting system was the best way to accommodate that desire. And it generally maybe a few minor hiccups with enforcement, making sure the area is shut down at the time the permit states and the appropriate barricades. It seems to have been going pretty well for those that have sought the permit. And then the other route for individuals to obtain permission to possess and consume alcohol in public rights of way is a right of way use agreement. That's what we use for the sidewalk cafes where they can exclude the public. So 10 Mile, Hawthorne, I want to call it Riley's. I think it's the Suki Cafe, the Bert and Ernie's, the Hub, Mediterranean Grill and the Windbag all have right-of-way use agreements. That's where they've sort of built these patios out, and they can control it. When they obtain that permission from the city commission, they also get the requisite insurance. I did look into what other cities in Montana are doing, and all except for Butte Silver Bow generally prohibit the possession and consumption of alcoholic beverages, except when they have been granted a permit and require liquor or alcohol liability. Some locations like Bozeman do not require the insurance for events less than 75 people. And Missoula, they have discretion administratively to adjust the requirements to the event. And they relayed that it's mostly depending on the size. If it's a smaller family type reunion event and they want to consume alcohol, they do not require liability insurance. And the same thing with Bozeman. If it's less than 75, it can be waived by the city manager. So with that, the recommendation that staff has is maintain the status quo, which is their alcoholic consumption possession on city property is not allowed except by permit of the manager with the alcohol liability. And I would recommend that we look at the ordinance and add authority for the manager to exempt events with less than a certain number of people that are not open to the public to accommodate those type of events. And from my understanding, we might kind of already administratively be accommodating those already. The alternatives are three. One is to basically eliminate the current ordinances and allow the possession and consumption of alcoholic beverages on city property without a permit citywide. The second option is the same, but within a limited area of the city. And then the third is to continue to require the permit, but do not require indemnification and alcohol liability insurance. You can answer any questions you have, Mayor, Commissioners.
Commissioners, comments or questions for the manager or Mr. Jordan?
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I think Mr. Jordan spoke to this a little bit, that he thought things were going a little easier for folks who were trying to get the permit this last summer. I'm curious if we've gotten any, if the manager's gotten any specific feedback lately. And then when Commissioner O'Loughlin might have insight on this, I had looked at the minutes of the last couple joint BID and DHI meetings, but I didn't see anything specifically on feedback from them or their members as to how this has worked out or not. It seems that maybe the issues before were that administratively we just weren't implementing it very efficiently. And if that's improved, I think that's a good thing, and it sounds like it has. But curious if we need to improve that, because I think, you know, the more activities and events that we can promote, the better. And just want to make sure that we're covering our bases while also not being, you know, a hurdle that is difficult to get over.
Thank you. Any other comments from the commission?
Yeah, I guess I have a couple questions, Mayor.
Go ahead.
So I seem to recall during the budget process, there was a relatively short conversation around city-sponsored events. And I was just wondering if you could share a little bit of information, if the city were to sponsor an event, how that plays into the existing ordinance or requirements for an event.
Mayor, Commissioners, Commissioner O'Loughlin, my understanding is if it's a city event, we would need to work with MMIA to make sure our insurance would cover that event. And I think there would be probably some discussion about the city's control and management of that event to minimize the liability.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, and I was just going to respond to Commissioner Dean's question. I mean, I do think there have been at least anecdotally to me, some, just concerns about the process generally. The desire for some clarity around the existing process. I don't know how it's gone recently, so I think that's a really good question. I have encouraged the downtown Helena and BID folks to attend, and hopefully they can provide some feedback on that. And then I just have one question. So I really appreciate the information about other municipalities, super helpful. I don't know if you had a chance to talk to them about specific events. It seems like in my mind, we've got a couple different categories of events. So we have, private events, as you've mentioned, where the public is not open to the public. We have events where it's in a sort of a confined area and you've got kind of like a beer garden or somewhere where I think they're getting a permit for a particular smaller location. And then sort of what we've grappled with over the summer, and I don't think that this is just related to one event. I mean, I think there are others in the community that may be interested in an event where folks are going into existing establishments to purchase beverages and walking around like a particular area of town. I'm curious if you talk to any of the municipalities about that third category. So setting aside Butte, right? But other municipalities that may say have like a downtown art walk, where I think my understanding is that it's fairly typical where you've got folks potentially moving around the whole downtown area after purchasing a beverage. Did you talk to the municipalities about those specific types of events and how they are handled?
Yeah, Mayor Collins, Commissioner O'Loughlin, I did. Honestly, it seems like our process seems to work a lot better. There was a lot of, I will put it as confusion about how the other cities were managing their process. But it was that third latter one that actually, at least among city attorneys, now, of course, that's our job, to cause the most concern. And all of us recommended, and they would recommend to their city, that insurance is still required. It needs a permit. The issue is who gets the permit. The recommendation could be that those individual establishments that are providing the alcohol can get their name on the permit and provide their own insurance. Of course, the problem we ran into with Pride is that there were some establishments that did not want to be potentially in a fight if a claim were to arise over whose alcohol caused the claim. And so it made sense for the event organizer to obtain the commercial general liability insurance, which includes host liability, through the special events coverage via MMIA, which is, from my understanding, very straightforward to get. There sounds like there was some confusion about terminology and how that was represented to the insurance agents. But I think we've got all of those issues worked out now. So if we apply and look ahead to next summer, we can get this resolved before events start to happen.
Thank you. Any other comments from the commission?
Yeah, just for the city attorney. So just clarifying with Butte, because my understanding is Butte is pretty much open container except for those limited hours. If Butte has its downtown art walk, and they even close off the street for it, is it your understanding, Mr. Joden, that they're not requiring anyone to get any kind of liability insurance? Somebody can go in and get a drink at a gallery and then walk out and go someplace else?
That's correct. That's my understanding, Commissioner Halliday.
Thanks.
Okay, any other comments?
Mayor,
Go ahead.
one question, I guess. So from a staff perspective, is there a great deal of demand for change? I mean, it seems like we have a permitting process. We have permits for sidewalk cafes, and when the process is followed, it seems like it works pretty well. This is, consistent with what's going on across the state. I'm just wondering if from either businesses or public, is there a great demand for change to the way we've been doing things? Thank you.
Mr. Jordan?
Mayor Collins, commissioners, I would defer to David and transportation since they have taken over these permits. I don't process them. All I do is look at the insurance.
Director Kanapke?
Also, Mayor, just before I jump in, I just want to jump in here and say, anecdotally, I think every process that is bureaucratic in method, which is unfortunately often communicated as part of an insurance demand, would be one that most want to remove overall. So just to flag, even if we are in alignment with everyone else, it's still a process that many believe is unnecessary or may agree is necessary. We're just providing you with the risk, and that's really the assessment that we're after with Thomas. So, David.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioner, City Manager. I don't think we received a lot of requests about this. I think maybe it's been 2 or 3, mainly around the larger events where, like Thomas had stated, there was a large area that was requested to be have an open container, but maybe other businesses didn't want to participate. So, maybe that's an area to explore on different event sizes and what we can look to help, not only cover the city's liability, but to enhance these events as well throughout the city. So I don't know if that helps. I can get some definitive numbers to you on the amount of alcohol permits that we've issued. I don't have those offhand right now, but I can get those to the manager and get those to you here in the next couple of days.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I just had oh, go ahead. Sorry.
One question is, what are the downside to the process we have right now?
It's a commitment of purchasing an additional policy that is not routine for organizations.
Commissioner Halliday?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to follow up on Commissioner Logan's question. We got the reason that the discussion started sort of with the downtown walking mall concept a number of years ago was because businesses had come in and said, this is something that we see as sort of a value add, an opportunity, whether it was, a conceptual map of downtown, whether it was the walking mall, those were all sort of policy decisions to be thought about at a later time. But there was definite interest from the businesses at that time. During COVID, thanks to some entrepreneurial spirit from the Hawthorne, the Rialto, 10 Mile, right? We've created essentially a small corridor of outdoor alcohol consumption on the walking mall. Where that leaves out is businesses like Taco del Sol serve alcohol but can't access their outside due to space limitations that they are under due to the way the walking mall is laid out, right? So open container back at that time would have allowed businesses like that to allow people to sit outside and consume alcohol that would have worked in that manner. So, I followed up with a couple of owners who I'll just leave nameless so that they don't have to be know who they are and what they're saying, and said, what do you guys think? COVID's been pretty good on showing that this works in front of your businesses. Would you guys want to revisit that question of open container? And most of them just shrugged and sort of said, the city doesn't seem to have any interest in it and we're not picking that fight. And so, I think there is interest in that change. I do think that they've been convinced it's not worth the fight. and that probably the status quo is where it's going to remain. But I do think that I've heard that interest is there when I've asked local businesses, at least downtown.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any others? Okay, do we have any public comments on this topic?
First, Mr. Mayor, I have Kev Ham.
Go ahead, Kev. You have the floor.
Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, and Manager Charlotte Hawk, thank you for letting me speak. The big concern that I have with this is that we still don't have a permit that allows us to say we are asking for an open container space where we will do host insurance, because that's not the issue. We finally got that figured out, and I appreciate all the help that we went through this last year from Manager Charlotte Hawk and City Attorney Thomas Jodowin to get that figured out and what we were asking for, because as you know, dealing with insurance companies is like trying to speak Chinese by way of French. So we've got that figured out. We know how to do it. What we don't have, and this is the problem with asking for that insurance, is a permit that says we're asking for an open container to be in this place and we will get host insurance with it, because the insurance providers still want that. And the city needs to know that that's the permit that we're asking for from the city. And since the permits have not been updated to have that simple checkbox, that's the problem. And it means that when DHI is looking at doing the art walk, or when anybody comes to me and goes, hey, how did you put on Pride? I go, well, I had a long drawn out series of conversations where I had to argue with people and make everybody uncomfortable for a long period of time and bet the house. And I don't know that it's going to work for everybody. Instead, it's literally just, could you update the permits to say those things? Then we could get them and it would not be a problem, because I'm looking at right now trying to get the permits for this next year, because we've got 6 events that I want to do, because I like bringing people to this town. I'd like to be able to, on the 2 events that I know where this is a possibility, put those in the permits and get that insurance right away, so that the city is clear, so that everybody's happy, and so that I can start marketing them, because then I will get more people showing up and we will have more business happen, which is a good thing for everybody. That's what we need. So I understand where you're coming from on, does this decision need to be open? I would, quite frankly, I would love it if the downtown corridor was just made open container, because I think it'd be easier for everyone. But I also know where you're at politically. I understand where you're at managerially. I understand where you're at when you're dealing with the insurance company. So I get it. But at least move in the direction that those of us that are looking to do these bigger events have the tools in front of us to go, this is what I want. This is what it's for. Here's my insurance. Life is good and we can move on. But until those forms are fixed, we can't do that. And that hasn't happened.
Thank you, Kev.
Mr. Mayor, next I have Mickey Zucker.
You have the floor, Mickey. Mickey? Okay, Amanda, would you go to the
I'm
next?
not Mickey, I'm Sonda.
I'm not referring to you.
Oh, well, it popped up on me.
I'm sorry, I did unmute Ms. Gobb for the next comment. We do have Sonda Gobb.
Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Gobb.
Sorry. Just for my son did a couple of internships across the country, and Memphis and Nashville, just for consideration, actually the city hosted 1 day a month where it was open container downtown. So, I mean, our downtown has a great blocked off area. So it's just a consideration. And then those businesses could have that 1 day where they can go back and forth. So just a consideration, and thanks for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Gobb. Amanda?
Mr. Mayor, next I have Mike Rooney.
You have the floor, Mike.
Hello, Mayor Collins, Manager Harlow Schalk, and commissioners. My name is Mike Rooney. I am the operations director for Downtown Helena Incorporated. I know that Mickey also has some more to say about this as well from the Business Improvement District. I think Kev had a great point as well. I think that right now, just updating the process would be hugely appreciated. I also do want to point out that I think there's 2 different, excuse me, not issues per se. I think 2 different ways of looking at this, in that There's open container for events, so the soapbox derby, pride, things like that. And then there's also supporting our businesses who want that ability to have open containers outside of their businesses. So I do want to say that from discussing this with a lot of our businesses downtown, there are two different ways of looking at it. And I do wish that you all would consider that when we go forward in this. So for example, like I said, larger events is one thing. On the other hand, though, is businesses like 10 Mile Hawthorne, Gulch Distillers, Blackfoot, these businesses that have the ability and space to have open containers outside of their places of work. So I think that's something to consider as well. And I do appreciate working with Manager Harlow Schalk on the Fall Art Walk. Again, I do want to update everyone really quickly that we have taken a step back right now and are analyzing safety concerns and the ability if we still go forward with the Fall Art Walk on November 12th. But that's a quick update anyway. But I do want to thank the city. I have seen some changes, and communication has definitely improved vastly for things like this. And I do appreciate Kev Ham kind of paving the way this summer for this. So that's really what I have to say, just kind of considering the difference between a business having the ability to have an open container in front of their place versus larger events where we have big crowds that are looking for an open container. And that's all I'd wish you to consider.
Thank you, Mike. See, Mickey wants to come back on. Mickey, are you there? You have the floor.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yay! Thanks, Mayor Collin and Commission. Yes, I'm just going to kind of add and reiterate some of the conversations and voices that were already heard. As most of you know, I've been in my position for just about 4 years, and I can tell you a little bit of the history and context. I've been having great conversations over the last 4 years with multiple folks from your city staff on the permitting process. I will say from my perspective, and granted, I'm not the one doing most of the permitting, as Mike kind of alluded to, but I feel like it has gotten easier with especially the hiring of the event coordinator, Heather, who's now under the transportation director. I think that that's been a fantastic addition and something that we've kind of been asking for at least my tenure. So I just want to say thank you and appreciate that. I think we have an opportunity to, as Kev said, and I believe Mike was saying, I was trying to mess with my audio, so I missed part of the conversation, but I still think there's an opportunity to streamline the process and making sure that it's a checkbox. Anybody who does event planning knows that there's a lot of components to making a successful event. And I think if we can find a way to better streamline the permitting process and have it be checkboxes, if it's, if there's intended to be liquor, not intended to be liquor, those types of things, I think that will help immensely, not only for Heather from her perspective, but for event coordinators in general. So I just wanted to say thank you. I think it has come a long ways in the 4 years that I've been here. That addition to Heather has been fantastic, but I do think there's still an opportunity to make it a little better. And I just think the city staff has been doing a tremendous job. I know Mike mentioned that too, after he planned his first event this spring and then going through the second event, it just went smoother. So I think, everybody, we're all starting to get on the same page, but it's just been kind of a long process. And then I'm just kind of going to open Pandora's box a little bit too with a final comment. I know DHI and BID are interested in being a part of that larger conversation with the city in partnership in event planning specific to the downtown. I understand because events happen outside of our district that there still has to be a process with the city, but if we can help in that partnership in any way, we are definitely open to that conversation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mickey. Amanda?
Mr. Mayor, at this time, I see no other hands raised and I have no written public comment.
Thank you. Okay, commissioners. We are to provide consensus direction. Whoa, 3 gone up already. Jeez, slow down, guys. Go ahead, Commissioner Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I think I am hearing that things are getting better, but we need to improve just the logistics of our forms and how that process works. I think that those are some pretty easy things to actually get done. One thing I am curious about is and I was wondering this just last night when I was walking to the Hawthorne. what is the plan moving forward for some of the areas outside the Blackfoot, 10 Mile, Hawthorne, especially as winter comes. I know, it's, I mean, when they have the heaters on, it is fun to still be out there. And I'm wondering, what does that look like moving forward? I know all of this was, or a lot of this was prompted by responding to COVID, but I think it has proved to be, a great addition, and wondering how we can better facilitate that so folks aren't having to continuously, fill out forms and permits. And so I'm curious about that, but also very supportive of making this process as easy as possible, so that folks can, fill out the form, get it to their insurance, and be done. So that's where I am.
Thank you. Commissioner Logan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question for staff. I'm going to assume that the suggestions made by Mr. Ham, Mr. Rooney, and Ms. Zerker are well within the realm of possibility in terms of streamlining the process and updating the forms and so on.
Staff?
Yes.
Go ahead, Commissioner O'Loughlin. Oh, are you done, Commissioner Logan?
Yes, thank you.
Commissioner O'Loughlin.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I had kind of a similar question just related to Mr. Ham's specific question about adding open container. It sounds like that's possible to add as a thing. Okay, and then I also had the same question Commissioner Dean had related to the walking mall area specifically. Can you all provide an update on how that's being handled as we head into the winter months?
Sure. This is Rachel. I can also turn it over to David and Christy. Between the two of them, there are two parts to the walking mall in particular. The first is obviously the continued operation of where we are today. And then the additional dollars that were put forward as part of the general fund savings through CARES, where allocations were identified to make improvements on site. So we're currently working with the BID and DHI both to implement those dollars into downtown. But I'm going to turn over to David about the long-term right-of-way permit. David.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioner, City Manager. Typically the insurance comes up for renewal, so that's why we have the reoccurring permits, so that the insurance is still enforced. But as far as long-term, we worked with Hawthorne, Rialto, and 10 Mile to get their non-exclusive right-of-way permits in place. They provided their insurance. We gave some conditions for they covered the city in the event of an event that pick up the trash that gets out there. But as far as other businesses down there, we've had requests. We've gotten back to them, but we've not heard. One was for a new business that came in and wanted to put a table and chairs outside. I know that sounds simple compared to this open container permit, but they reached out to us and we got them the forms, and unfortunately haven't heard back from them. But it's coming to winter time, so I can see where they're probably just setting their stage for next spring. But as far as other businesses that have the opportunity or space in front of them, we are more than willing to look at their proposals and work with them to hopefully become, things to become a reality.
Thank you. So what we're saying is that you guys will go back and do some edits and bring it back to us to finalize.
I'm sorry, can I ask a Clark, when you say finalize, are you talking about the permit? Because we do not have to bring that back through the commission for approval. We can just add the box. I just
Okay.
want to make sure I understand what you would like for us to bring back.
No, that's what I was talking about. But that's okay. I got you.
Great.
Mr. Mayor,
Go
Just-
ahead, Commissioner.
really quickly, and I just wanted to make an ask of Mickey and Mike if they have additional feedback over the coming, months as to the implementation. I think we'd all be really interested in hearing that as to how we can continue to improve. So if there is additional information that comes in, if they can let us know, I know I'd appreciate that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Jordan?
Yeah, Commissioners, I just wanted to get guidance on the recommendation that we tweak the ordinance to give the manager the discretion to exempt events with less than a certain amount of people that are not open to the public.
I don't have a problem with that. Commissioners?
I don't either.
I'm good with that.
Any others? Okay. Thank you. We will now move over to Dodge Avenue closure, public parking. Manager Hollishaw.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. This item was brought up in May based on a request from Commissioner O'Loughlin, and wanted to bring it back around for your consideration based on her ask. And that was more details around the closure that took place and how to reconsider that in front of the commission as an item that had already been approved. That closure was already approved. So I'll turn it over to David and to Thomas, who both studied this item and trying to understand how it got in front of the commission for consideration.
You have the floor, Director Kanopke.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager. So as the City Manager stated, in May of 2001, the city received a request from the Headwaters Craft House for parking along what is a closed portion of Dodge Avenue. The Craft House was built on the previous location of right next to a bank right now. The parking that's in question, or the area in question, is across the street of Aspen. Back on June 23rd of 1997, after receiving a petition from the majority of the adjacent landscaping, or the adjacent property owners, the commission did allow closure of that portion of Dodge, with the caveat that the owners were to install landscaping and paved access or paved parking on that closed portion. Obviously, that went forward to the satisfaction of the commission, seeing how that portion is closed. There is landscaping there, and there is parking and some curb and gutter, and also, as I stated before, landscaping. The original request that was brought forward through the Headwaters was, can patrons of the Headwaters Craft House park on that closed portion? And due to some research that the city attorney's office did, that answer is probably not, because when a street is closed, that ends all general public use of the street, and the adjacent property owners are granted exclusive use of that closed street. Thomas can speak to more details on their analysis of that. In reviewing of this request, if we were to reopen this, would only serve the immediate area. The existing parking areas for the adjacent properties would be removed or impacted, and we would have to delineate the street, as now it's more of a entrance to a parking lot more than a street. So with all of this information, our recommendation is for staff to work with adjacent property owners to resolve the parking issues, hopefully by supplying existing documentation and possible options. But ultimately, it would be a decision of the property owners that requested, that are current adjacent to the closure, to come to a mutual beneficial resolution, is our hope. We do have some alternatives. We leave the closure in place as significant money was invested to meet the commission's desires in 1997. Adjacent property owners could request vacation of the street. As a request for a vacation is reviewed by city staff and then brought forward to the commission for consideration. That's in Helena City Code 717D. The city commission can remove the closure. A closed public way may subsequently be reopened for vehicular or other traffic by the city commission after public notice and a hearing, and that's City Code 717A. In that option, if we reopen that, we would need to fund some money to delineate what is going to be the open street and what would be the adjacent parking. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, and thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jordan.
Mayor Collins, Commissioners, I don't have anything further to add.
Commissioner O'Loughlin.
First, thank you for all the information. This has been really helpful and nice to just kind of see the articulation of what, what's the legal use of the street today. I guess I just have one question, and I think I posed this question to the city manager in advance, so I don't know if there's been any research or if anything's been found, but do we have a sense of what the policy reason was for closing the street in 1997?
I know I did ask the team to find and review that detail. I know the best they could find is detailed in that memorandum. So from what I understand, there was not an ability to find further detail in that. I'll look at Thomas and David, though, who did that research.
Yeah, Mayor, Commissioner O'Loughlin, it wasn't really clear. The minutes aren't the best, but it seems like initially the adjacent property owners asked for a vacation of the Dodge Avenue right-of-way, and for whatever reason, the city viewed a closure as sort of a mediating step, which is kind of odd because it allows the adjacent property owners to use the property without transferring it back to them in terms of ownership, and excludes the public. Reading between the lines, it seems like the city wanted to maintain the future ability to use that right away for the public in the future if it needed to be used. But for 23, 24 years now, it has been used as a private drive functionally.
Okay, that's super helpful. And then my follow-up question was just, do we have a sense of how the adjacent property is being used today in 2021 as it compares to 1997? How it was zoned, what's the use now compared to then? Like, do we have any sense of that?
Mayor Collins, Commissioner O'Loughlin, I do not. And I don't know if maybe Sharon can, perhaps somebody with longer institutional memory, as to what was developed there. I know up until very recently on the east side of the closed Dodge Avenue was a camper RV sales lot, which has recently ceased.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments from the commission?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I think the staff's suggestion to sort of get the neighbors together and try to figure out a resolution to any conflict that may be a result of this is kind of the place to start. So I'm certainly in favor of that. Thank you.
Any others?
Yeah, for either community development or legal, we got an email that contained a photo of future development on what was formerly the RV park. It's being called apparently Freedom Square. And it sets out a number of phases of buildings, planned future design, It's got kind of the layout comparative to Dodge Avenue, Aspen, Poplar, North Montana. Is that something that is currently in any kind of planning process? Are there ingresses or egresses to those properties being laid out or reviewed in any way by community development at this point, Sharon, or maybe just generally understanding how that property is interacting with the closed street?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioner Halliday, we have only heard general descriptions of what the intent is of the new owner. We do not have anything formally applied for within the planning department. I don't even think they've been in for a pre-app. That's how preliminary anything we've seen is. But I'll double check with my staff to see if that is correct, and then I'll email the manager and the commission to know if we do have anything submitted. So
thank you. And at this point, I will also agree with the staff's recommendation to have the parties discuss this. Do you have any other comments from the commission?
Well, Mayor, maybe before we sort of try to reach consensus on the recommendation, I would like to hear from if there's any of the property owners on today. Because one question I had for the city attorney is, have we discussed this recommendation with adjacent property owners? Are they willing to go through this process? But perhaps maybe we can just hear from public comment on that first.
Do we have any other property owners on? Amanda, would you check, please?
Mr. Mayor, I do have one hand raised. Mike Moore, I'm not sure if he's a property owner, but he has had his hand raised.
Mr. Moore, you have the floor. Mike, you have the floor. Mike?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Sorry about that. Computer technical difficulties. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Commission. I am one of the owners of Headwaters Craft House. I am not a property owner, but obviously a business owner in the area. We have had discussions with the owner of the Ellen Center, which is the property that asked for the closure of Dodge Avenue. Originally, it was a vacation, but that was denied due to, I believe, Northwestern Energy wanted to keep utility access. In our discussions, the property owner was very much not interested in talking about any kind of shared access or any kind of agreement to be good neighbors, for lack of a better term. And ultimately, you know, we're just trying to figure out how to best serve our business and the area. Having that extra access and egresses from our business would be a big help in keeping the flow of traffic and just giving people options to get to our business. And if the owner of the Freedom Center or Freedom Square does pursue with his future development plans and they are approved, Dodge Avenue on that section would have to be opened if it was going to become commercial property like he intends. I don't know if that helps in any kind of delineation, but that's kind of where we stand as business owners down in this area.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Do we have any others? We can open up for public comments. Do we have any other comments on this topic?
Mr. Mayor, at this time, I see no raised hands and I have no written comment.
Thank you, Amanda. Commissioners?
Well, Mayor, I guess given the fact that we don't have a lot of historical record on why it was ultimately closed in 1997, we know that the use of the adjacent property is certainly different than what it was in 1997. I drove over there and you can drive it like a road. It's not closed. So I drove down it. I recognize that there may be some city investment here in order to reopen it, but it does seem like, given the change in circumstances in the surrounding adjacent property, I think it's worth considering reopening it. If there is a desire by the property owners to, and it sounds like what the city is putting forward to us today is they would actually facilitate the mediation between property owners. I'm comfortable with that being a first step, knowing that if that doesn't work, I hope that this can come forward to us again in relatively quick order for next steps, or perhaps we sort of say, if that doesn't work, if we say something today, if that doesn't work, we'd like to pursue option whatever. It just seems like we have changing circumstances in this area, and I'd like to see the city to be proactive about responding to those changing circumstances, so that 6 months from now we've got even greater tension in the area.
Thank you, Commissioner. But according to Mr. Moore, the other party was not willing to be good neighbors, as he said. So they were not willing to discuss that.
Right. So do we want to move forward with some sort of mediated discussion?
Director Kanopke or Manager Halshaw?
I think the most difficult part of this job is trying to help support legislating fixes when neighbors don't get along. So I would absolutely love the opportunity to talk to both the businesses and talk with those areas. I just haven't had enough time to get to them. There's been a lot of neighborhood issues lately. It's just been one of those busy times during COVID. But I do believe most people are reasonable if it's understood what the need is. And so I would love to sit and talk to Mr. Moore and also the property owners and spend the time. I know that I would like to have that. I can also send the team members as well to talk it through. And it's also often easier for me to just come straight in and have that direct conversation since it's coming from the commission.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other commission?
Mr. Mayor, I would be supportive of moving in that direction. I think what Commissioner O'Loughlin noted is important, that we want more activity. It's a really great spot. And I think the more we can encourage similar types of activity, the better. And so in any way that we can get to a resolution, I would be in support of.
Thank you. Any others?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I mean, I'm fine with asking for a mediation. I sort of share the somewhat skepticism of Commissioner O'Loughlin that if, and you, that if the parties have not shown, well, I shouldn't say the parties, but one party has shown relative unwillingness to work something out at this point, I don't want us to punt, right, on the decision that, oh, it's a neighbor problem, but it isn't, right? Because it is our street. It's a public street. The public wants to park on its street. And what a cool thing, right, Headwaters has done up there in an area not known for people walking or wanting to use some of those streets for anything but zipping down, that people want to park on a previously closed street decades ago and walk to a destination. Like, that's awesome. That's a business doing something that we all said we supported in developing neighborhoods and livability and walkability. The public rights of way are open for people to park. And that's a circumstance that has changed. And so rather than force these guys back together, I think we should determine in very short order whether there's room for a conversation here. And if not, then I think we should tee up for a legitimate policy discussion of whether or not the public should be able to park on its street. And we should, encourage Helena businesses to continue to grow and be successful Helena businesses, rather than, our own street closure standing in the way of business development.
Thank you, Commissioner. So, Manager Halshaw, yes, I hear that try to mediate, and in short order, let's get back and see what the next steps will be.
Yep, will do.
Good. Information only. Creative Pavement Painting Program update.
Thanks, Mayor. This is just an information item to you all to make sure that you're up to speed on where we're at with this program. Director Kanofsky just shared the process that's been implemented as a result, so that moving forward there's consistency, and the commission is made aware before those actually happen, when they come in, and what the process looks like for ease of processing in the future. So no action, just an update.
Thank you. Review of future agenda items for next commission meeting. Draft proposed commission. Anything from the commission? No. Okay, at this time, we'll entertain public comments. Is there anyone from the public wishes to address the commission? I see Ms. Wellborn. You have the floor. You have the floor, Ms. Wellborn.
Thank you, Mayor. Am I able
We
to be
can,
heard?
yeah, but I just want to say, I want to say something before you get on. I know you and I had a discussion.
Yes, sir.
And you have sent an email to the commission stating that we had forwarded emails to the press without first informing you. But we were able to correct that when you emailed the mayor and commissioner, you had already done that, right?
I see, and it was my mistake that
Okay.
I thought it was just released, but my apologies, and I humbly accept the correction. Thank you very much.
Okay, you have the floor, ma'am.
All right. I am looking to see if we can, the commission, the city commissioner and the mayor, and those that are involved with the UDC statute that was removed in 2017. It is our desire to remove the statute from Montana and move it to another location where we have several statues that are basically displaced. And so I'm requesting that we enter a dialogue in which the UDC, who originally donated the statue to the City of Helena, is able to reclaim what remains. We're not asking for the basin or any of the other things, just that which is lying somewhere in Helena under tarps. So I would just like to see if we could open that discussion and see where we need to go from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wellborn. Yes, I'm sure we can open the discussion and move forward and discuss this further. Do we have any comments from the commission on this? Okay. Are there any others who wishes to address the commission?
Mr. Mayor, I have Mark Alexander.
You have the floor, Mr. Alexander.
Mayor Collins, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. First off, let me say it is a pleasure to be able to come before you, Mayor Collins, and the city commissioner and the city manager, Ms. Harlow Shalk. And I'm coming forward in regard to the memorial fountain that President Wellborn just spoke. I am the historian who did the original research prospectus on your monument. And I've been researching, excuse me, monuments from all American cultures for the past 20 years. And I know that y'all had a difficult decision to make when y'all removed it. And I did not envy you in these decisions, and a tough time for our country. But I provided the historical research for Ms. Wellborn and identified that y'all had a certain dilemma, as there was nobody in Montana to come forward and give you information or discussion or a resolution for what to do with the remains of the monument once you removed it. I would be willing to give any information or answer any questions of a historical nature, as I've been researching your monument for the past 3.5 years. And if there's any questions that y'all may have, I am certainly at y'all's disposal, but I wanted to introduce myself and thank you for this opportunity to come before you and discuss this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Do we have any other comments?
Mr. Mayor, at this time, I have no other hands raised and no written public comment.
Okay, I do see the need for us to discuss the situation of the fountain. And so I don't know where the other commissioners are, but I think we should discuss it, put it on a future meeting agenda and move forward with the discussion.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I guess I think it was 2017 that our municipality made a deliberate decision to rid our community of that monument, and so I think it makes a certain amount of sense, and I'm not entirely sure why it is we're hanging on to it. So I'd be open to the discussion.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any others?
Yeah, Mayor, can I just ask a process question? So this
Please.
has not been noticed on our agenda. We're not in sort of commission comments at this moment.
No.
So I don't feel comfortable discussing this tonight.
Okay,
And yeah,
thank you. Are there any other public comments or any other commenters wish to address the commission?
Mr. Mayor,
Amanda?
I have no hands raised and no written public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. Commission discussion and direction to the city manager. Manager Hollishock. Do you have your directions?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I will work with the team to ensure that you get an update on the warm storage building as well, integrated as part of the conversation in the capital improvement policy and program that's brought forward. Thomas will also bring forward the details on what can and cannot be addressed during this part of the resolution, which requires I share to you all what the plans are for carryover projects. The additional questions that had been brought up around location and so forth will be identified and evaluated before coming back to you all. We'll also go ahead and move forward with maintaining the process that we have in place for open container, the permit process, and then also bring forward the amendment to the ordinance that ensures I have the discretion as the city manager for smaller private property parties and to require the insurance. And then last, mediate a conversation between the businesses, see if that's possible on Dodge. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Wellborn, you may want to email the commission. We are done with public comments. We're moving along. So, any final comments from the commission? If not, this meeting is adjourned.